Well, we have some fantastic news for outsiders. A press release only moments ago from Julie Bishop. Congratulations, Julie Bishop. Back in March on Outsiders, we began a campaign here on Outsiders and in the Spectator magazine to stop the abuse of Australian taxpayers' dollars going to Palestinian aid and being misused in that process. Leading that campaign, a great outsider himself, David Adler of the Australian Jewish Association, wrote for The Spectator, appeared on Outsiders, and worked very strongly to make this happen. So I'm pleased to say, welcome to the show, David Adler.
Thank you so much, Rowan.
Let me read from Julie Bishop's press release, released only shortly ago. Where is it? Here it is. Today, this is from Julie Bishop, today I announce that the Australian government has discontinued funding to the World Bank's multi-donor trust fund for the Palestinian Recovery and Development Program. This is Julie Bishop, I wrote to the Palestinian Authority on May 29 to seek clear assurance that Australian funding is not being used to assist Palestinians convicted of politically motivated violence. Says Julie Bishop, I am confident that previous Australian funding to the PA through the World Bank has been used as intended. However, I am concerned that in providing funds for this aspect of the Palestinian Authority's operations, there is an opportunity for it to use its own budget for activities that Australia would never support. And she goes on to talk about Australian values. Congratulations, Julie Bishop and the Turnbull government. David Adler, congratulations to you. A great victory for you. Tell us about the campaign, how you started it, how you raised awareness.
Well, for many years, actually, the Palestinian Authority has been using money to both reward and incite terrorism. There was an opportunity that arose recently because the Trump administration took some action. It's introduced legislation and imposed conditions on the funding. But at that stage, the Australian government was not talking about it, was not doing anything. So we did the research into what happened to the Australian money, what amounts were involved, how it was being misused, and we started to raise it. We raised it publicly with your assistance.
We did a terrific cover on The Spectator with an Australian $100 note in the back of a dead Jewish gentleman, which was basically making the point that taxpayers' dollars from Australia were killing Jews, basically. You wrote that article. It was a terrific article, had a huge response. We also had, thanks to your work on this show, Ross, on Outsiders, we had Pauline Hanson discussing this topic. You spoke to Pauline. Fraser Anning, only last week, also raised this in Parliament. Michael Danby, of course. So across the political spectrum, David, your work, your hard work has been rewarded. Terrific work. Tell us about your response to the press release.
This is a great step forward. It takes $10 million away from misuse, from being used by the Palestinian Authority, which essentially should be a terrorist organisation labelled as such. We think that any group that pays for killing is a terrorist organisation. And it's being redirected to a United Nations humanitarian fund, and that means that most of that money will be outside the control of the Palestinian Authority. This is a big step forward, that the amount of money available to them for terrorism will be reduced as a result of the announcement today. So that's got to be welcome.
Fantastic. Well done. And of course, the Daily Telegraph also ran a great article by Shari Markson highlighting this topic. So terrific work all round. We are absolutely very pleased with that announcement from the government. So what next, David?
Well, the story's not over entirely. Because as you might recall, we explained that there were two arms, that there was the payment to the terrorism and then the generation of the new terrorists, which is through the educational material of the UNRWA schools. And we showed some videos on your program of young kids dressed up as Arabs, killing notionally other kids dressed up as Jews. There is a lot of problem with the educational content of the UNRWA material. that needs to be radically reviewed. It needs to be cleansed. The US is imposing conditions on the UNRWA funding as well. So this is fantastic progress, not to take away anything from it, but we now need to look at the money that we're sending to UNRWA.
Ross?
Oh, well, I think it's a people's victory in a way. I mean, it's citizen-led. Congratulations. And it's an indication that democracy is still porous, it's still capable of listening, of hearing to a reasoned and factually supported humanitarian case. So, congratulations. Whatever the moment was where you decided to push back, that impulse, that moment, we hope will be replicated in 100,000 homes around Australia.
So, David, do we know if Julie Bishop ever got an answer to her letter to the Palestinian Authority?
No,
it would have been interesting reading.
We do know that Julie Bishop and the Prime Minister were personally handed our material.
Good.
So we have, in addition to the people who were on the record that you named, some of the senators, we know that there were members of Parliament and some private individuals who...
If you want to give anyone a gold star who hasn't
yet
been mentioned, you don't.
Well, the number one camera. There you go, David.
I haven't... I mean, this has happened so quickly, I don't have the permission, but the parliamentarian who brought this to a head most recently was Senator Fraser Anning by moving the motion in the Senate last week. It required the suspension of standard orders for it to be considered, and it was a 32-32 vote, so standing orders were not considered. But that was a very powerful signal that there was a body of opinion amongst our elected officials that something needed to be done.
And so finally, a few steps in the Julie Bishop in the high heels, the Louboutins or whatever they are, teetering after a little bit of Donald Trump there, Ross. You happy with that?
I don't get the Louis Vuitton. What's the Trump analogy?
Well, she's tottering along in Trump's footsteps.
Oh, in his footsteps.
Got it.
I understand.
Yes,
I understand.
Got to spell it out.
Okay. Yes, well, perhaps. I mean, Trump is certainly prepared to challenge orthodoxy and to do things which have not been done before. And Trump is a person who does not believe that habit is the best guide to future policy.
There's a Trump policy, of course, that he announced that's highly relevant to what we're talking about, and that, of course, is his leadership in moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
I was going to say, that's your next project, David.
We are raising that.
Good.
We did have a motion moved in the Senate also on that subject.
That was Fraser Anning.
Let me ask you this.
But it flopped.
Since you're here, I mean, I just think, aren't we in a situation where when we look for the voice of the international community, people instinctively kind of go out of habit to the United Nations, but it has simply become a machine for anti-Semitic propaganda, in effect.
Absolutely.
And so don't we need to seriously, how can we remain as a fully fledged member of an organisation which is anti-Semitic in its current DNA?
Well, we saw recently the United Nations Human Rights Council, the US pulled out of that. That is perhaps the most anti-Semitic organisation within the structure of the United Nations. And we actually made a call, the Australian Jewish Association made a call that Australia should also withdraw
absolutely.
From that body, from the Human Rights Council, because we are lending our credibility to it by being there. Okay, I've heard the argument that perhaps Australia should vote no, and be outvoted on each and every occasion when the anti-Israel resolutions arise. But I'm not sure that actually achieves anything, and I think we make a more powerful statement by withdrawing. So I can't comment about the United Nations overall, but certainly the UN HRC.
So David, I hope they're sitting in Julie Bishop's office around the television with a piece of paper, checklist. So big tick there in Canberra for the move today, for the announcement today. Few other boxes yet to be filled in. Moving the embassy to Jerusalem, withdrawing from the UN HRC. There's probably a couple of others, but a good start to the day. So David Adler, congratulations, well done. Well done, Turnbull government and Julie Bishop. And we look forward to the next steps on this journey.